Breaking news in Roanoke this morning. Police are dealing with an active shooter situation in the 800 block of Campbell Avenue right now. Roanoke City Dispatch confirmed that a shooting took place at 6:02 this morning. WDBJ7's Christian Heilman is there at the scene. He is working on getting more information for us. Christian, are you there?
Yes, good morning. We just got on scene, just tried to walk down to get a little bit more information. I'm going to step out of the way so you can take a look. Photographer Sam Doyle going to give us a look down. We are on Campbell Avenue Southeast. All of the police activity is actually centered about 2 blocks away, around 8.5 Street, 800 block of Campbell Avenue Southeast. That's where a lot of the police presence is centered around right now. For a little bit of perspective, that's around FreightCar America. We have multiple calls out to the city police trying to figure out exactly what is going on. When we figure that out, we will update you first on air and on our mobile news app.
All right, checking back on some breaking news happening this morning. And Roanoke police are dealing with an active shooter situation right now in the 800 block of Campbell Avenue. Roanoke City Police Dispatch confirmed that a shooting took place at 6:02 this morning.
WDBJ7's Christian Heilman is on the scene right now. Christian, what can you tell us so far?
Yeah, Nisi and Kimberly, since we last spoke, we actually saw even more police come here. We saw 5 police officers running down this street to the scene. That is centered a little bit down the ways, closer to the 8.5 Street intersection of Campbell. So mid 800 block. That is close to where FreightCar America is. So just within the last 15 minutes since we last spoke, at least 5 police officers running toward the scene. We saw other officers putting on bulletproof vests as they were walking toward the scene. This is clearly a very serious, very active situation.
Now, breaking news from your hometown news leader, WDBJ7.
An update now on breaking news this morning in Roanoke. Police have been dealing with an active shooting situation now for nearly 2 hours along the 800 block of Campbell Avenue. WDBJ7's Christian Heilman has been near the scene all morning long. And Christian, you have some new information for us now.
Yeah, Kimberly, that's right. We just spoke with Roanoke City Police Captain Rick Morrison. He gave us the latest information. We understand that 2 people are dead in this active shooter situation and 2 to 3 others are injured. And right now you're taking a look live. It looks like a heavy police presence is going in the building, presumably to take a look inside and see, scan the building, sweep the building to make sure there are no other threats in this area. But right now, again, we want to stress 2 people dead. That includes the shooter, 2 to 3 others injured, but police say the threat has been neutralized.
And now, breaking news from your hometown station, WDBJ7.
Breaking news at noon. 2 people are dead. 3 others are hurt in an early morning shooting at FreightCar America in Roanoke. WDBJ7 has team coverage today of the deadly shooting. Christian Heilman, Joe DeShiel, and Caitlin Francis have been gathering information on the story all morning long. We began our live team coverage at noon with WDBJ7's Christian Heilman. Christian has been out there since all of this unfolded earlier this morning. Christian, it's a lot calmer out there this afternoon.
Yeah, you're right, Kimberly. We're outside of FreightCar America. That's located on Campbell Avenue Southeast. Now, within the last hour, Roanoke City Police telling us that the building is all clear. They were sweeping it as a safety precaution to make sure there were no dangerous devices. Thankfully, none were found. Employees who were inside at the time left a few hours ago around 10:30, thankful to be alive.
As soon as we started work, it's an active shooter. We all hit and did everything we were supposed to do, well organized, and everything, they took care of it.
How close were you to what?
I was pretty close. I didn't get to see anything, but I was about a minute away from it, from actually being in there.
Police believe the shooter was either an employee or ex-employee. We're expecting to learn a lot more at a briefing scheduled for 3 o'clock this afternoon. We'll, of course, have coverage on our mobile news app and on air. Kimberly?
Yeah, we'll be airing that. All right, Christian, thank you so much. Now, news of the shooting created a lot of uncertainty for the families of FreightCar America employees who work at the East End shops. And WDBJ7's Joe DeShiel spoke with one man who rushed there this morning. Joe, what did he have to say?
Well, Kimberly, DJ Anderson says he saw a news report about the shooting. He wanted to come down here to see his son and make sure he was safe. Now, a large crowd of FreightCar America employees gathered outside one of the buildings this morning while police officers searched the property to make sure there were no additional hazards. They checked the doors and worked their way through the buildings here with their weapons ready. Anderson watched with us outside of the property and said his heart finally slowed down when he talked with his son on the telephone.
You think you hear it at other places, but you never expect for it to happen in your own hometown. And when something like this happens, it's shocking to me, you know, and because he's my youngest son.
And now, breaking news from your hometown station, WDBJ 7.
2 people dead, 3 others hurt after a shooting at FreightCar America on Campbell Avenue. Roanoke's Police Chief Tim Jones is stepping up to the podium right now. Let's hear what the police chief has to say.
Related to this morning's incident there. Also, this situation utilized combined resources from the Roanoke Police Department, Roanoke Fire and EMS departments.
All right, there you have it. We just heard from Police Chief from Roanoke City Police Department, Tim Jones. We did find out that Itachu Vakede, 53 years old, from Kenya, former employee, had just quit there or missed 3 days of work is what they said. Never called in, but had been employed at FreightCar America 7 months ago, back in March. We are told that he had arrived there this morning on a bicycle with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun and fired 10 rounds. Again, 2 people dead. That's including the gunman, and 3 others hurt.
Tonight, a deadly workplace shooting in Roanoke. Police have identified who shot and killed a person and hurt 3 others at the FreightCar America plant.
The assailant was found deceased at the scene from what is believed to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
WDBJ7 has been at the scene all day and has team coverage.
He's a real sweet person, and I didn't think he would do something like this.
It's all ahead in this special edition of WDBJ7 at 5.
Good evening. I'm Jean Jadhan.
And I'm Melissa Gayona. Tonight we are learning more about who the gunman was, where he lived, and how he got to the plant.
But still, many questions remain tonight. WDBJ7 anchor Chris Hurst is leading our coverage from FreightCar America tonight. Chris, we now know the gunman had actually worked at the plant.
He did, Jean and Melissa. He worked here for about, we don't know exactly for how long he worked here. He stopped showing up for work in March for about 3 days, and then he was terminated after that. Then 7 months later, we are told by police that Getachew Fakede shot and killed 1 worker inside the paint room where they paint the rail cars here at FreightCar America. He then shot and wounded 3 other people who survived before shooting and killing himself. The names of those he shot we do not yet know. Senior reporter Joe DeShiel was here this morning, and you also covered the update from police that we had this afternoon. So, Joe, what can you tell us about how this unfolded?
Well, Chris, police got the call of shots fired shortly after 6 o'clock this morning. They were here in a couple of minutes and quickly determined this was a workplace shooting with 2 dead and 3 wounded. Police say they believe the shooter fired 10 rounds from a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. Police officers rushed to secure the scene and make it safe for emergency medical workers to treat the wounded. As the sun rose over the Norfolk Southern shops where FreightCar America's operation is located, they continued to search the property to make sure there were no additional threats. Police now believe the shooter arrived on a bicycle and acted alone. They say he worked at FreightCar America until March, when he failed to show up for work.
They had no previous contact with him until today's events, and all indications were that he was, at the time he was there, a hard worker. So we have no true indication as what might have led to him taking these acts of violence out on this location. Of the 3 people who were taken to the hospital, 1 has already been released. We're told the other 2 remain in serious condition. And Chris, when the officers first arrived, employees of FreightCar America were already evacuating from the scene, and police say the emergency plan that was in place made all the difference here today.
And Joe, part of that is because they had recently received training on what to do in an active shooter situation. That was done by Roanoke Police, who trained some of the staff here. So let's bring in the chief of Roanoke Police, Tim Jones. Chief, you've been giving us an update on what you guys know so far, but let's talk about this training that your officers gave to FreightCar America employees. When did that happen, and what did you tell them?
Chris, that took place around the beginning of 2016.
And so when the workers are finished with their shift, there's a tavern down here, down the street, Chap's Tavern, where I went inside, got a Diet Coke, and many of the people inside shocked, numb, very silent, struggling to cope with exactly what happened at their place of work here today. And that's the same with friends of all of the people who work here, and of course the family members of those involved and of those who were killed and shot. WDBJ7's Justin Ward is on the other side of FreightCar America, where there is an employee parking lot. Justin, you've been talking with those people. What have they been sharing with you?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Chris. Several of them have been walking out of the building with their arm around a co-worker. They tell us what happened today was a nightmare.
Workers walked to their cars traumatized. Police questioned many of them this morning in the parking lot. Police have also kept their eye on vehicles in the lot, but aren't saying what significance they play in the investigation. The news of the shooting is disturbing people who live in the city.
Let's be kind to one another. Hug your mom. Thank her for bringing you into this world. Find her. Hug your dad. Thank him. And let's hug each other. This is a big deal.
Workers who were inside tell us the response to the shooting was fast. They were told to find a safe place while it was happening. They told us they've been offered someone to talk to and any help they'd like.
Now, investigators have been walking around the parking lot and around businesses near the FreightCar America all throughout the day. Chris, at 6, you'll hear from a man who was inside when the shooting happened.
Yeah, we want to get his perspective on what happened inside and, of course, how he's doing, how his friends and fellow co-workers are doing as well. Deadly workplace shooting in Roanoke.
We all hid and did everything we're supposed to do.
As we learn new information, we are hearing from both workers and their loved ones.
You never expect for it to happen in your own hometown.
Tonight, your hometown station brings you team coverage in a special edition of WDBJ 7 at 6. Good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Hurst. A violent morning before sunrise here at FreightCar America in Roanoke. And as the sun begins to set, we are realizing the totality of what happened here at this workplace shooting. It is those friends, the family members, and the co-workers of those impacted here at this shooting that we are thinking about tonight. And WDBJ 7's Justin Ward has been talking with those people all day today. He's now in the employee parking lot of FreightCar America on the other side of this location where I am. Justin, what have they been sharing with you?
Chris, well, they have told me that they are very emotional and understandably shaken. We spoke to one person who works inside. He took cover when the shooting happened.
Very, very thankful. It could have been me.
Michael Ewing didn't hear the gunshots, but he heard the after effect.
So they went over to the PA to our active shooter to go hide.
Ewing and his co-workers around him looked for shelter. He was just a minute's walk inside the plant from where everything happened. DJ Alexander was at home when he heard the news.
And I have a son that works at FreightCar, so I'm just out here to support because I like to see him. I'm a family man. That's my son.
Alexander's son was inside when the shooting happened. He rushed to the plant to make sure his son was okay.
He said they got everything in his area that he was in corned off, and that he was okay, and that kind of just made my heart slow down a little bit.
Now, police questioned many of the employees as they were walking to the car, and as they were walking to their cars, they had their arms around each other, just offering some kind of peace today. Chris, they told me today that they would like to forget, really.
Yeah, a day that is going to be very difficult to forget, not just for law enforcement and the people who work here, but all of the people here of the Roanoke Valley for this workplace shooting. Now, let's talk a little bit more about what we do know about the man who perpetrated this incident. He came to Roanoke 5 years ago from Kenya, and we understand from police that he came here in a refugee relocation program, something that a lot of people who live here in Roanoke have taken advantage of. There are many refugees who live here in this city. There was a lot of police activity in southwest Roanoke at an apartment where the shooter was said to have lived. That's where Caitlin Francis has been. Caitlin, what more can you tell us?
Hey there, Chris. Yeah, I spoke with a woman who lives at apartment number 6 at Brandon Manor Apartments. Now, that's right next door to where Fideke was living. Now, she says she was absolutely shocked to learn when she got home that that man was involved in this morning's shooting. Elizabeth Bartleson says she's known Ketachu Fakede for about 5 years. She says he moved here from another country, Africa. Police did confirm he is a 53-year-old Kenyan native, and Bartleson says her neighbor was a nice guy who had worked at FreightCar America, but she told me he talked to her about problems he was having there.
When he quit his job, he was telling me and my boyfriend that passed away that there was workers down there that was giving him a hard time. And he's been telling his supervisor about it, and his supervisors didn't want to do nothing about it. And I guess it just took a toll to him, and he did what he did.
Bartleson says she and that man who lived right next door to her were best friends. She says she didn't think he would ever do something like this. Now, before I spoke with Bartleson, investigators were actually there at Brandon Manor Apartments. They were conducting a search warrant there, Chris.
It was a busy day for all of the officers on the scene responding to this very active threat, what became an active threat with this active shooter response. It is something that they prepare for. They have to train for it now and train for it often. WDBJ7's Eamon Amara has been in the New River Valley talking to one college professor who, Eamon, he is well versed in this concept of active shooter training.
That's right, Chris. Todd Burke is a former Maryland police officer and now trains students on many things, including active shooter scenes. He says it's imperative that every officer go through live shooter training before having to deal with something like this morning. It can be nearly impossible to perfectly train for a situation like what happened at FreightCar America Tuesday morning, but officers still try. The training has changed from what officers were previously taught.
What officers used to do is just set up a parameter and wait and make sure all is okay. Now what we do is you go in, again, with the assumption of trying to neutralize the shooter and also minimizing danger, and at the same time hoping that, for officer safety reasons, there's not an ambush situation.
Burke says officers will go into common places like office buildings or schools, like the Danville police did just one day before this shooting. That helps prep for the situation, but officers likely never trained for Tuesday's location.
You can't train in every single place and go into every single business, but the idea is the practice. The idea is to get the officers comfortable with what they're doing.
Burke also tells me many times officers are just sweeping the building after an incident because more than 60% of workplace shootings are over before officers arrive. But Burke also studied and published work on the psychology behind workplace violence. Chris, he tells me the violence is very common, but shootings like this morning's are extremely rare.
They are rare. That is important to note, Eamon. The Bureau of Labor Statistics says about 500 people die in workplace homicides every single year. And one more quick point about what you were saying, the sweeps that police do after this. It's a grid search, but trying to do a facility like this, an industrial mechanical facility like this, Gene, something very difficult for officers to do.
This is your hometown station, WDBJ 7.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Melissa Gayona.
And I'm Chris Hirsch. The Roanoke Valley is still reeling tonight after a workplace shooting earlier this morning. The gunman shot 4 people at the FreightCar America shops just outside downtown Roanoke before killing himself.
3 are recovering, but 1 died. His girlfriend has confirmed for us Daniel Brown was killed this morning just minutes after clocking in for his shift. WDBJ 7 Shane Dwyer spoke with Brown's girlfriend and joins us live tonight to share those details of his conversation.
Melissa and Chris, my conversation with Vicki Hawkins about Daniel Brown revolved around a few things, but 3 main points in general: how dedicated he was to his family, to our country, and to his job. He is originally from upstate New York, and tonight his family, both locally here in town and back up in upstate New York, are devastated and just looking for some sort of resolution for this. He worked for FreightCar America for about 8 years, and he was all the things you would want in a friend, family member, or partner. He served 14 years in the military and fought in Desert Storm. He had worked there, like I said, for about 8 years and built coal cars, and he acted as a father figure to a lot of the younger guys in the shop. His girlfriend, Vicki Hawkins, says he loved his family, and he treated her granddaughter as one of his own.
That he had a huge heart, and that he would do anything for anybody, and that he's going to be so missed by his family. And I know one little girl who's going to miss him a whole lot. And I just want them to know what a wonderful person he was.
Hawkins says Brown very rarely ever missed a day of work, always was here for his shift at 6 o'clock, always clocked in on time or just a few minutes early, and truly did love his job here just outside of downtown Roanoke, building coal cars for FreightCar America. The family is in the process of making funeral arrangements, and they are still just trying to put all these pieces together and figure out how all of this could have happened to what they describe as such a great, loving man, Melissa.